According to Penal Reform International, the number of women prisoners is soaring globally, fueled by punitive approaches to low-level, non-violent crimes during the COVID-19 pandemic. Asia tops the number of female prisoners at 50%, followed by Africa, 24%, and 19% in Central and South America. It is often linked to poverty, adultery, and harsh drug policies. Hello, I'm Demiake Mokaliele, and this is Our Voices. On today's program, we will look at the devastating impact incarceration has on women and look at reforms to the penal system that addresses gender-specific concerns. Overcrowding in jails also leads to outbreaks of communicable diseases such as tuberculosis, HIV, and now the coronavirus. We'll also take a look at the stigma around female imprisonment and question if the justice system is fair to women. In 2010, the United Nations adopted the Bangkok Rules that promoted non-custodial sanctions, pledging to address gender-specific needs through penal reform. Well, Zimbabwe is leading the charge, with First Lady Auxilia Mnangagwa earlier this year debuting the country's first all-female open-concept prison. It allows inmates to go home and spend some time with their family members. As part of her mission to uplift and empower women, the First Lady built a kitchen as the centerpiece of the Marondera Female Open Prison. Fazila Mohammed, the founder of the advocacy group Citizens Initiative Zimbabwe, has been fundraising among individual Zimbabweans and donating food, water, and medical supplies to various prisons. She also shares her thoughts on the first all-female open-concept prison in Zimbabwe.
Our concentration right now is on medication, PPEs for the staff as well, and the inmates, which is including masks, and mainly water, sanitizers, soap. Those are the main focus. And when we can, we then also donate food items. We also are teaching people and communities how to sustain themselves, not just by waiting for donors or donations to come in, but also how to grow their own food, and then the surplus they can actually sell. In the female prison section, there's more challenges. For example, the maternity section. There is no proper maternity ward. So if someone is pregnant, they have to take her to a hospital, and there are transport challenges. And now with COVID, hospitals won't even admit the inmates. So there are certain kind of challenges where we come in. The female open prison is the only one in Southern Africa, and every 3 months, a prisoner can actually go to their home for 2 weeks and then return back. Also, a lot of women who have babies, it makes a difference. It's easier for them, and it's also easier for the children growing up. Children up to the age of 2 years, until they are feeding, they are able to stay in prison with their mothers. So I guess there are benefits of having open prison system.
The United Nations estimates there are more than 527,000 prisoners who contracted COVID-19 in 122 countries, with more than 3,800 fatalities in 47 countries. One country that experienced a spike in COVID-19 cases due to imprisonment is Ethiopia, where health workers and local officials say the arrest of thousands of prisoners, opposition members, and journalists by authorities during the height of the conflict in Tigray in July 2020. Earlier, in a move to curb the spread of the virus, Ethiopian President Sahle-Work Zewde pardoned more than 4,000 prisoners at the beginning of the pandemic. But as Simon Marks reports from Zimbabwe in Ethiopia, the overcrowded prisons and makeshift detention centers from those arrested in Tigray has worsened the situation.
In the 4 months since Ethiopia recorded its first case of COVID-19, Dambal Kasim, the head nurse at a coronavirus treatment centre in the Ethiopian town of Zimbabwe, had very little to do. But in the aftermath of widespread unrest following the killing of Hachalu Hundessa, a popular singer who fought the cause of Ethiopia's Oromo ethnic group, That resulted in thousands of incarcerations and at least 178 deaths. Things have become much busier. Dambal, health workers in the region, and local officials say some detainees have tested positive for the coronavirus. Authorities are now testing inmates amid concerns the virus is spreading fast.
In the 3 months since COVID-19 began, we only had 2 cases of coronavirus, but in the last 2 weeks we've recorded 23 cases. In prisons, there are sometimes 150 people in one room following the unrest that resulted in many arrests. That is why people are being infected in jail.
Rights workers say Ethiopian authorities have detained scores of opposition members and journalists for prolonged periods without charge since Hachalu's death on June 28, resulting in overcrowded jails and makeshift detention centres located inside schools and warehouses. While the government has blamed the opposition Tigray People's Liberation Party for coordinating the killing and the violence that followed Hachalu's death, anti-government activists and Oromo opposition members believe the violence was pre-planned in order to create the conditions necessary to clamp down on dissent. Jibril Shabi, the CEO of the General Hospital in Zimbabwe, spoke to VOA about the risk of COVID-19 spreading among detainees.
Following the arrests after Hachalu was killed, we're recording more cases. We have 3 female prisoners infected and sent to a nearby town. We suspect there are more, and we're conducting more tests.
Among those detained who have contracted COVID-19 is the Kenyan journalist Yasin Yuma. The Foreign Correspondents Association of East Africa has complained that he was held despite the court granting him bail and have appealed for his immediate release. He was sent to a government-run isolation centre. The Ethiopian Health Ministry did not respond to questions asking how many detainees had contracted COVID-19. Simon Marks for VOA News, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia.
An update. After 50 days in jail, Kenyan journalist Yasin Juma was released from the Ethiopian police custody in August 2020. While in detention, the seasoned journalist was put in COVID-19 isolation after testing positive for the virus with no access to treatment, and thereafter released after the country's 10-day quarantine. Should women be released if the government fails to provide safer detention facilities? Tell us on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our handle is @VOA Our Voices. We are also on WhatsApp. Our number is on your screen. See how inmates are learning to fight for their own justice when hope is slim. More on that after the break on Our Voices. Welcome back. You're with Our Voices. Now, convicted prisoners are too often dismissed by the judicial system, especially in developing countries like Kenya. But reporter Brenda Mulinya discovered one aid group, Justice Defenders. This has been training prisoners on their legal rights for representation and appeals.
Isaac Ndegwa spends his days at the Justice Defenders offices in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, researching cases as he seeks to help prisoners with their appeals. Just a few months ago, he too was behind bars, serving a 14-year sentence he had been handed for his part in a robbery and involvement in a violent crime. During his time in prison, he participated in one of Justice Defenders' legal training programs, graduating with a degree in law and knowledge that saw his sentence reduced.
We were able to challenge that law through the knowledge that we gained, and my sentence was subjected to the same, to the remission. So I didn't serve the whole 14 years. I served now 9 years and 8 months.
Isaac is one of 15,000 inmates who have had their sentences reduced or who have been released from prison through the efforts of Justice Defenders, a charity organization that seeks to make justice accessible to vulnerable members of the society. Miriam Washira, the country's director for Kenya, says the organization trains not just inmates but also prison wardens.
Seeing people in prison behind bars, being able to study a law degree and finishing it, that has been one of our biggest success stories.
The organization seeks to bridge a gap by empowering those who are unable to access justice through a fair legal process. John Lewis Onkendi, an advocate of the High Court in Kenya, says many people can't begin a legal process because of lack of funding.
A lot of Kenyans have a problem in accessing justice because justice in Kenya can be expensive. By that I mean affording an advocate for an average Kenyan is not an easy task. And so sometimes you find that a lot of them do not get quality and credible legal representation.
Through its legal education, training and practice within prisons in Kenya, Uganda and now the Gambia, Justice Defenders has served more than 33,000 people since its beginning in 2007. 39 inmates have graduated from the organization's University of London Law Program. 6 of them are currently practicing law. Brenda Ambani, one of the lecturers teaching law, says the demand for the organization's services is high.
One of our greatest impact is having people who have studied this degree and they use that knowledge to argue out their cases in court.
The organization, run solely through donations, seeks to have those who have gone through its programs give back by helping those still locked up and fairly get access to justice. Brenda Mulinya for VOA News, Nairobi.
Oluyemi Adetiba Orija leads an all-female law firm called Headford Chambers, which she founded in 2018 to help prisoners get justice in Nigeria for free. I had the opportunity to speak to her about why she decided to do this and why the number of women beneficiaries are so few.
Being a lawyer in Nigeria, I've been in practice. I've worked under employment with other law firms, about 4 law firms before I stepped out to establish my own law firm. And, in my contract of employment, I'm not allowed to represent people. And then I am opportune to also go to court like every day, doing one case or the other. I witnessed people being brought from prison to court for minor offenses. I mean, somebody being accused of stealing something worth 10,000 naira. That is like less than $5. And the person is in prison for 10 years, sometimes 5 years, 2 years, 1 year because of this thing. And it is obvious that these people do not have the money to contract the service of a lawyer. If they do, probably they won't stay that long if they have to even go to prison at all. So I told myself that should I have the opportunity of starting a law firm of mine, I'm definitely going to incorporate the pro bono aspect of law practice into my practice. So in 2015, I started my law firm, Headford Chambers. And, we were there struggling and all of that. Then in 2018, we decided to start the pro bono aspect of it, like I've always said, that I would love to go to prison and help people who cannot afford to contract the service of a lawyer, especially inmates that are being charged with very minor offenses or who are victims of police brutality, because this is very prominent here in Nigeria.
What about corruption, and how does that play into your ability to free some of these people, especially those who are on very frivolous charges, when you realize that with corruption, a lot of people want to be paid off?
Corruption is part of it, and poverty is also part of it. So we realize that why I say corruption is part of it is every criminal justice starts with the police. So when police arrest people, we realize that 50% of people in prison are poor people. Does it mean being poor is a crime? Does it mean only poor people commit crime? Absolutely no. So what I would say is a lot of rich people get to police station and they can pay their way off at the police station. So the police would not charge them to court. So you see more of poor people who cannot afford legal services in prison. So I attribute it to corruption. And another thing is poverty. People are extremely poor in Nigeria. And you see people who are living in very terrible condition. So, I mean, it is a cause that I'm so passionate about, because at the end of the day, when we even take people out of prison, we see the life, we take them home, and we see where they call home. It's just like it is impossible not to commit crime, because they must feed, they must survive. And, so there are a lot of things that we can attribute all of this to.
Oluyemi, how many of the people you represent are women?
Up till now, we've helped about 175 persons out of prison, and we have just one female beneficiary. Oh. And this is so because I think the male gender are more of victim when it comes to police brutality in Nigeria. It's not like women are not victims, but our female prison are not like congested, and most of the time you have women being able to, probably family comes around and they're able to afford to get the service of a lawyer.
Oluyemi, how would you measure the success rate of your efforts? I think you mentioned that since 2018, when you started, you've managed to bring justice to over 135 people and the one woman.
For us, more of our success rate is cases that are dumped in the docket, in the court docket, people that are dumped in prison. Even the so-called complainant had forgotten that they made a complaint at some point or the other. Sometimes it's the police saying this person is a cultist without having any evidence. So I attribute that number to cases that has no basis, frivolous cases. At the end of the day, most of these guys were innocent. I think I had just one person on our team who was actually guilty of crime charged. And the complainant came to say, I'd forgiven you. All other persons were absolutely innocent.
You have such a young team, yourself included. You're only 31 years old from what I've read. How do you manage to keep your team so motivated to do what they do? Because the pay is so little.
Right now, we are 6 lawyers and we have 3 support staff who are also women. The fact that I'm also leaving a legacy, I'm putting back, I'm going to be remembered for something good. It gives me that kind of satisfaction. And I can see my team as well, that they are all passionate about the work. I've seen people say, Mom, the money is not good enough, but I love what I'm doing and the environment to do it as well. So, I mean, those are the things that keep us going. At the end of the day, I think that thing that binds us together is the teamwork. Nobody cares whether it's somebody is in court today and after court is going to a police station to get somebody out and is moving. And, it takes a lot of energy. And if you're not passionate about it, you're definitely going to break down. So I think the only thing that binds us together is the teamwork and the energy.
Mental health and substance abuse disorders are common among people involved with the criminal justice system. As doctors work to convince the public that mental health problems can and should be treated, patients at one facility in northern Nigeria say they are among the lucky ones. VOA's Heather Murdoch reports.
Patients here refer to themselves as inmates, in chains to keep them from running away. They were committed by their parents or guardians, who also have the authority to set them free. Abraham Mohammed, who has been living here for almost a year, says he feels he has finally kicked a years-long addiction to cough syrup.
Yeah, but when you're here for like a year, get full treatment, the counseling, whatever, etc., you will be able to be strengthened, fully. Even in yourself, you can sit yourself down, tell yourself what you're supposed to do when you're out there in the physical world.
Young men learn welding and how to build everything from pots to sofas. Young women learn to sew and make baby clothes. Lowell Maduru heads the facility. He says patients are treated by psychologists and traditional doctors and counseled by pastors and imams. But he says making enough money to keep the center running is the biggest challenge.
Among the ways we find funding for the center is collecting small payments from parents, which enables us to buy them food, drinks, and their medical treatment.
Maduru says most parents pay $50 a month for their child's care, but many patients are abandoned by their families, making funds thin. Doctors say Maduru's patients are among the minority of people getting any kind of mental health care in Nigeria, mainly because of the stigma attached to mental illness. Moses Ilu is a neuropsychiatrist in Abuja.
When people have diarrhea, they are not isolated. They don't suffer stigma. But when they have diarrhea of words, of vocabulary, you want to isolate them. That is when the stigma comes on.
Because of this stigma, he says, most psychiatric programs in Nigeria are woefully underfunded. And while the treatment may appear unusual here, patients say even the chains on their ankles are meant to help.
It's not just to, kind of molest or maltreat or anything. No, it's for you to be able to know that, wow, freedom is light for which many men died in darkness. Okay, what if I'm able to have this freedom once again? What will I do with it?
Off camera, other patients say they appreciate the skills they are learning at the center, but like Mohammed, what they want the most is to get better and remove the chains. Heather Murdoch for VOA News, Kaduna, Nigeria.
It's time for another quick break. When we come back, Simanish Yakoye introduces us to Kenya's top boss lady of corrections who is changing the life for women behind bars. She's our woman to watch this week. Stay with us.
We're bringing women's voices to the conversation, and more than that, we're building a community of inclusion and empowerment.
Here in Kinshasa, campaigns to raise awareness against the spread of coronavirus are common, but getting that information to people who have no access to water, electricity, or money can be a challenge.
We are here at Kalerwe Market, Uganda, Kampala, where in this whole market, women are crying out for their situations to change.
For women, it will be better for us.
I think a big thing for me is just being able to say that when these protests are happening, does it turn around into policy?
Our kids are raped every single day.
This movement got the government to listen. It really was powerful because it showed what is possible when men and women band together and say, enough is enough.
It's not necessary anymore to climb on a car. I can be in any place to cheer with the people.
Welcome back. You're with Our Voices. The life of female prisoners in Kenya has been made easier by one woman. Our Voices' Simanish Yakoye spotlights her in this week's Woman to Watch segment. Simanish?
Thanks, Ndimiake, and hello, everyone. This week, we introduce you to Wanini Kireri, Kenya's first female Assistant Commissioner of Prison, who is changing the leadership landscape in the nation's prison system. She oversees both men and women prisons across the country, and her leadership style is hailed as human but firm. Brenda Mulinya reports from Nairobi.
Wanini Kireri sits just 2 ranks away from the topmost seat in the Kenya Prison Service. She is the first woman to hold the position of Assistant Commissioner of Prisons and the first woman to hold the position of Commandant of the Prison Staff Training College in Kenya. She joined the Kenya Prison Service in 1982 and has been steadily rising through the ranks at the various prisons she has served. She considers her second stint at Langata Women's Prison, situated in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, as a turning point in her career and the beginning of her legacy in the prison system.
And I have seen my journey and what I have done, my impact in Kenya prisons, because I became a change agent, and it takes boldness.
Wanini was the first officer in charge of Langata Women's Prison, where she allowed media cameras into the correctional facility and showed for the first time how female inmates and their babies were being treated. Then, the inmates were sleeping on the floor with limited or no access to basics like sanitary towels and diapers for their babies. Her desire to change the institution was also born out of what she had witnessed as a junior officer.
I also didn't like a lot that was going on. I could see the mistreatment, but now as a very young officer and junior, because there is an officer in charge, there is little you could do about it. And if you became a bit kind to prisoners, it's like there is something that is not right with you.
That kindness, she says, is what has helped her successfully navigate administration duties, even in Shimalatewa, a maximum security prison for men located in the coastal city of Mombasa.
I did not go with that character of I'm the boss. I went with that character of like a mother. As much as I'm an administrator, I went with the character of a mother. So I remember within 1 month, they were all very comfortable. And I would listen, and I realized it's just about listening.
Peter Ouko is a former inmate and now founder of a non-governmental organization that focuses on social justice. He says it's a combination of respecting human rights laws in prison settings and Wanini's personal qualities that serves her well.
You could see Wanini doing this, but she depended on the people below her. So she's a people person, she's a servant leader, and the leadership was not only amongst her staff, it was also amongst the inmates. So it was a holistic approach, and that's why the changes were effected very fast.
Vincent Mapesa, a long-serving prison officer, echoes his sentiments. He has worked under 7 male prison bosses before working with Wanini, and he says the prison is doing much better now.
It is the conducive environment that she has created among our officers. No discrimination. It depends with your ability and your passion on work. And she values every officer under her. So that's the biggest difference, which is different from the former men that we were working under.
Wanini is hopeful that she will continue to climb the leadership ladder and maybe one day lead the entire Kenya prison service, as she urges other women not to shy away from taking up leadership positions and challenging themselves. Brenda Mulinya for VOA News, Nairobi.
Assistant Commissioner Wanini Kireri indeed is demonstrating human rights approach to the prison system. What do you think the prison system should focus on? Punishment or rehabilitation? Share your comments on our social media platforms using our hashtag VOA Our Voices. Until next time, I am Semenish Goye.
Thank you, Semenish. And that is where we end our show this week. To catch up on the latest episodes of Our Voices, go to the VOA website at voanews.com or YouTube. Thank you to my Our Voices colleagues, and on behalf of everyone at the Voice of America, I'm Dimiake Mokalierie saying thank you for watching. Stay safe.